Coach, Brant just laid it out a little bit about a lot of the guys that'll be back. We are losing some seniors, specifically at the inside linebacker spot, with Binky Coleman and Sione Tupou. What are some of the guys that we haven't seen out there that you think can come in there next year and supplement those spots?
Yeah, well, Sione's coming back.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So we had that discussion, the week after senior day. He decided to walk, but we had a good, productive meeting after that. And so that's always a huge thing for you because he's really played better this year. But losing Braden Stringer and Binky, obviously, those are two guys that played a lot of football. But through the last 2 years, we've been able to develop a couple, with Kenny Haynes and Josh and John Emanuel. So they're going to obviously, ramp up their competitive nature for spring ball to try to push for a starting job, and then obviously in the recruiting trail, we're going to have to bring some guys in. Hopefully we can get some of these guys mid-year. But when I first got here, I had 8 senior linebackers, and when you lose 8 senior linebackers as your first year, I think it ended up being 7 because Gavin got injured and came back. But that's not easy to fix in 2 years, 3 years, especially with COVID. So we need to sign another good class of that. But we do feel good about the 5-6 guys returning for the spring.
Defensively this season, it probably hasn't gone the way that you would idealistically wish. But what were some of the things that you saw this year and the last couple years that you think you can implement to improve this defense going forward?
Well, I think from after the Eastern Michigan game, we just kind of went full speed ahead with, playing more of a 4-man front to a certain degree. We're definitely a lot more 4-man front than we've been. We're actually more 4-man than 3-man throughout the season. And I think since South Alabama, we've been very competitive, I still think we need to continue to work on, just the ability to play some man coverage on critical downs, third down. I think it's very evident that, we try to get creative and have certain pressures and zones, and at some point we've got to be able to win some one-on-ones, and we tried that earlier in the first 4 or 5 games and had some success with it, and then we started getting some pass interferences, and we ended up having to kind of move with it, just with the injuries and the kind of the shuffle at corner and DB. But since South Alabama, we've kind of gotten an identity. Our kids are getting good at it, and we're starting to be able to pressure a little bit more and just mix up what looks we're doing.
Coach, you talked about kind of establishing your identity. What do you want that to look like moving forward?
I think to me, we've got to be able to stop the run. I felt like we've done that well. Now the issue with that is when teams play us, I think we're bottom 5 of most rushing attempts against us in the country. But when you come off the field with 47 rushes for a 3.7 average against Coastal Carolina, you feel pretty good. I think we did a very similar statistic to Georgia Southern, but when they run it 50 times, the yardage, if that's all you look at, is going to be something that may not look as attractive. But I feel from that standpoint, that's our identity we're starting to fix and feel. And, with that, when you start to play more aggressive up front and change your looks, you've got to make sure you can, put a little pressure on the back end to cover, And I think it was glaring, we played a really good first half against Coastal, and the difference in that game was just a couple big passes, and they're in coverages that are sometimes difficult to handle, especially when you're facing a rush or an option attack like that. You're going to be in a loose man situation. So if we can get that going and improve the guys we've got and recruit some guys, I think that's going to really add to what we're building right now.
What helped y'all be successful against the run against Coastal?
Consistency in the positions, like I said a couple of weeks ago. The guys are starting to understand and play the same techniques over and over and over again. And when you do that, you can any new look you start to get comfortable with, and you start to see the picture. And they played hard and aggressive, and also to add, I say it every time I'm in front of you. The difference this year for me than the last 2 years is what's in those walls. There's a negative light around this place every year outside of these walls, and I've been continuously trying to tell you all that the kids go to work every day. The culture's different. The attitude's different. If you would have seen us practice today, you would have been like, all right, this does not look like a team with three wins. Now, if you would have saw us practice the last couple of years, you could argue with it, and I think that's the difference. I think they're understanding that there's an element to this game and a level that you've got to take on if you want to be a Division I football player. and if you want to be a winning program. And I think that has been awesome the last 7-8 weeks for me. And I expect us to be the same competitive and hard-playing defense that we were the last 7 weeks.
Even though the wins haven't come, do you think that's the element that has really grown the most at Texas State is kind of the culture that we don't see that's in the locker room?
Yeah, there's a lot to it, I mean, there's a lot of things, this isn't the first time I've come into a place where, everybody says the magic number is 3 years to flip. But, we're still playing with some guys that decided to come back for extra years that we inherited when we first got here. So that's the difference in your roster management. And, that being said, it was a battle, the first 2 years to get that the way you play the game and corrected. And I think our guys are starting to understand that. And I think that's a huge deal. And I think that's what is different completely from this year's team and the last couple years' teams.
Coming up this week, Arkansas State. What are you anticipating from their offense?
Well, I mean, honestly, when you click on the tape, you see a really good offense. Almost better than what you'd want to see. Their appearances and formations are the same as they've been in the past. There are some new concepts that he's brought, but for the most part, without the one really good receiver that left, it's the same team we played last year, other than the quarterback that rotated. So obviously very talented on the perimeter. I think the challenge for us is we've got to kind of get out of that option run element that we've been in the last, really 3 weeks if you count UL Monroe. And so that means, just some details in our coverages, being able to change calls and change coverages and be able to play more of a passing attack. We've got to kind of flip the script on that and kind of work through the type of offense we're going to see. But very talented. They're going to, they're a team has turned the ball over, and if they haven't turned the ball over, they'd be in a lot more games than you would expect. And the last 3 or 4 they played have been really close.